The studio lights of Lorraine glowed warmly that Tuesday morning, bathing the pastel set in soft yellows and blues. The audience clapped on cue, coffee mugs steaming in their hands, as the familiar theme music faded out. Lorraine Kelly smiled into the camera with her usual easy charm, unaware that this episode would soon become one of the most talked about moments in daytime television history. "Now then," she said brightly, turning toward the guest sofa, "my next guest is one of Britain's most recognizable actors. From Sharp to The Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones to Time, he's a national treasure. Please welcome the one and only Sean Bean." The applause was loud and genuine as Sean Bean walked on stage. Dressed simply in a dark blazer, open-collar shirt, and worn leather boots, he looked every bit the grounded Yorkshireman fans adored. He waved politely, nodded to the audience, and took his seat opposite Lorraine. At first, everything went exactly as expected. They spoke about his latest BBC drama, a gritty, socially charged series exploring corruption and moral compromise in modern Britain. Sean spoke thoughtfully, his voice calm but firm, choosing his words carefully. Lorraine nodded along, clearly impressed. "You've always chosen roles with real depth," she said. "Is that something you look for more as you get older?" Sean smiled faintly. "I think so. When you're younger, you chase excitement. Now, I'm more interested in truth. Stories that reflect what's really happening out there." It was an innocuous answer. No one shifted in their seats. The producers behind the cameras relaxed. But then Lorraine glanced at her cue card. "In speaking of what's happening out there," she continued, "your new role has already sparked some debate. Some critics are saying it's, well, a bit political. Did you expect that reaction?" Sean's expression changed, not dramatically, but enough. The smile faded, replaced by something more guarded. "I expected honesty," he said. "I didn't expect people to feel uncomfortable just because the show holds up a mirror." Lorraine chuckled lightly, trying to keep the tone friendly. "Well, you know how it is. Morning telly, people want a cuppa and a bit of light chat." Sean leaned back slightly. "That's the problem, isn't it?" There was a subtle murmur in the audience. Lorraine raised her eyebrows. "Go on. We've gotten too comfortable with light chat," Sean said. "We avoid the hard conversations because they don't fit neatly between the weather and the ad break." A producer off camera stiffened. Lorraine laughed again, a touch more strained this time. "I don't know if I'd agree with that entirely." "I know," Sean replied calmly. "That's why I'm saying it." The air shifted. Viewers at home leaned closer to their screens. Lorraine adjusted the papers in her hands. "All right then, let's talk about one of those hard conversations. You've been quite outspoken recently about the media, especially television, shaping narratives rather than challenging them." Sean nodded. "Yes, and I stand by that. Some would say," Lorraine said carefully, "that shows like this one provide balance. We entertain, we inform, we connect." Sean met her gaze directly. "With respect, Lorraine, balance isn't achieved by avoiding discomfort. It's achieved by facing it." The studio fell quiet. Lorraine's smile tightened. "Are you saying we avoid discomfort here?" Sean paused, choosing his words. "I'm saying daytime television often prioritizes comfort over truth. And that has consequences." The audience gasped softly. A few people clapped, unsure whether they should. Behind the cameras, the floor manager whispered urgently into a headset. Lorraine leaned forward. "Sean, people tune in to start their day positively. There's nothing wrong with that." "There is," he replied, still calm, "when positivity becomes a shield. When it stops us from asking why people are struggling, why systems fail, why anger keeps growing." Lorraine's tone sharpened. "This is a chat show, not parliament." Sean's eyes flashed for the first time. "Exactly. And that's why these conversations never reach parliament, because they're shut down everywhere else." A stunned silence followed. Lorraine sat back, clearly taken aback. "I think that's a bit unfair." "Unfair is pretending everything's fine when it's not," Sean said. "Unfair is telling people to smile while ignoring the reasons they're hurting." The director signaled for a cut, but Lorraine raised her hand subtly. "Not yet." "Sean," she said, her voice firmer now, "with all due respect, you're a guest on this show. And I won't have it painted as something it's not." Sean leaned forward too, matching her intensity. "And I won't sit quietly while television keeps people asleep." The audience erupted, half applause, half shocked murmurs. Lorraine stood up. "Right," she said sharply, professionalism cracking at the edges. I think we need to move on. Sean rose as well, slowly. That's exactly what always happens. Sean, Lorraine warned, please sit down. No, he said softly. This matters. The producer's voice came through Lorraine's earpiece, urgent and unmistakable. Cut him off. Lorraine looked at Sean, then at the camera, then back at Sean again. I'm sorry, she said, her voice cold now. But this interview is over. A stunned hush fell over the studio. Sean nodded once, not angry, disappointed. Thank you for proving my point, he said. Security staff approached from the side of the stage. Gasps echoed through the audience as Sean picked up his jacket. Lorraine faced the camera, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We'll be back after the break, she said tightly. As the cameras cut to adverts, Sean Bean was escorted off the Lorraine set, and within minutes, social media would explode, clips would go viral, and Britain would begin arguing over a single question. By the time the adverts ended, the damage was already done. Inside the control room, producers stared at their monitors in disbelief. Clips of Sean Bean standing up, his final words, "Thank you for proving my point," were already being clipped, subtitled, and uploaded. A junior assistant glanced at her phone and whispered, "It's trending." Already. Back on set, Lorraine sat rigidly on her chair as the next segment began, a pre-recorded cooking feature hastily slotted in. She smiled, laughed on cue, and asked questions she'd asked 100 times before. But her hands trembled slightly under the desk. Sean Bean, meanwhile, was escorted down a quiet corridor toward the back exit. No shouting, no resistance, just a heavy silence broken by the echo of his boots against the floor. One of the security guards finally spoke. "You didn't have to push it that far, mate." Sean stopped and looked at him. "Yes," he said simply. "I did." Outside, a small group of journalists had already gathered, tipped off by someone inside the studio. Cameras flashed as Sean stepped into the gray London morning. He raised a hand, not in greeting, but in quiet acknowledgement, and got into a waiting car without a word. Within an hour, Britain was split clean down the middle. On X, the hashtag Sean Bean was right trended alongside hashtag Respect Lorraine. Clips of the confrontation looped endlessly, slowed down, analyzed frame by frame. Armchair experts debated tone, intent, responsibility. He hijacked a light-hearted show for a political rant. Finally, someone brave enough to say it on daytime TV. Lorraine handled it professionally. They silenced him the moment it got real. Celebrities joined in. An actor tweeted, "Sean said what many of us think but are afraid to say." A TV presenter fired back, "There's a time and place." That wasn't it. By lunchtime, news channels were replaying the clip as breaking media controversy. Panel discussions erupted. Psychologists talked about public discomfort with confrontation. Media analysts dissected Lorraine's body language. And still, neither Sean Bean nor Lorraine Kelly said a word. Behind the scenes at ITV, panic set in. An emergency meeting was called. Executives crowded into a glass-walled conference room, voices low but tense. He accused daytime television of putting people to sleep. On air, one producer snapped. "And we proved him right by cutting him off," another shot back. A senior executive rubbed his temples. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was booked to talk about a drama, not start a culture war. "But that's the problem," a younger producer said quietly. "The drama is a culture war." Silence followed. Someone cleared their throat. "What about Lorraine?" "She's furious," came the reply. "And shaken. She feels ambushed." Lorraine sat alone in her dressing room long after the show ended. Her makeup was still perfect, but her eyes were tired. A producer knocked gently. "You okay?" She exhaled. "I've been doing this for decades," she said. "I've had difficult guests. Angry ones. Grieving ones. But this felt personal." "Do you think he planned it?" Lorraine thought for a moment. "No. I think he believes it. And that's what makes it dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "Because people listen to him," she replied softly. "And because part of me worries, he's not entirely wrong." The producer didn't respond. That evening, Sean Bean finally broke his silence. He didn't do it through a flashy interview or a primetime exclusive. Instead, he posted a simple statement on his website, no comments enabled, no emojis, no hashtags. I went on television to talk about a story that matters. When that conversation was shut down, I refused to pretend everything was fine. I respect Lorraine Kelly as a professional, but I stand by what I said. Discomfort is not the enemy. Silence is. Within minutes, the statement was shared thousands of times. But the real shock came later that night. A leaked clip surfaced, unaired footage from Lorraine. In it, moments after the cameras cut, Lorraine could be heard saying, off mic but clearly audible, "He's not wrong, but this isn't the place." The internet exploded. The next morning, Lorraine opened her show as usual. "Good morning," she said, looking straight into the camera. "Before we begin, I want to address yesterday." The studio was silent. "What happened on this program has sparked a lot of conversation," she continued. "Some of it fair, some of it not. I want to be clear, no guest is ever invited here to be humiliated or silenced. But this show also has a responsibility, to its viewers, to its format, and to the people who start their day with us." She paused. "I regret how heated things became. I do not regret setting boundaries." It was a carefully worded statement. Polished. Professional. And yet, something felt different. Viewers noticed it too. The emails poured in, supportive, angry, conflicted. Ratings spiked, then dipped. Advertisers began asking questions. Meanwhile, Sean Bean's BBC drama saw a surge in streaming numbers unlike anything expected. Interviews he'd done years earlier resurfaced, reframed as warnings. Old quotes suddenly felt prophetic. One commentator said it best. Sean Bean didn't get kicked off a show. He kicked open a door. A week later, an unexpected announcement dropped. ITV revealed a one-off late-night special, Comfort vs. Truth, the role of television today. The hosts, Lorraine Kelly and Sean Bean. The nation held its breath. When the special aired, there was no shouting, no walk-offs, no security, just two chairs, a dark studio, and a conversation that went exactly where daytime television never dared. At the end of the program, Lorraine turned to Sean. "Do you still think I was wrong to stop you?" she asked. Sean considered this. "No," he said. "I think you did what the system trained you to do." "And the system?" she asked. He looked at the camera. "That's what needs questioning." The applause was long, uncomfortable, earned. By morning, the headlines had changed. Not, "Sean Bean kicked off Lorraine Kelly's show," but,